The tavern's closing. Best be on your way, stranger.
What? No mug of ale for a weary traveller from distant Corhagen? I can reward you well, for I am of noble blood.
I stay open for no man in these dark times. Things come with the night that no sane man would welcome.
And so I left, cold of heart and soul, forced to the road and the long, bitter night.
That's him! End it! Now!
I awoke to the pain of a new existence.
Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are actually taking a look at Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, that was actually released in 1996. This was a unique type of game. It was an action, or kind of more of a horror based RPG with action elements, and it was very gothic and eerie in terms of the atmosphere based around the game. I remember actually my first experience with this game. Myself and my brothers and that, we didn't actually own a PlayStation at the time, but we used to rent it out at the weekends. And we've been renting the PlayStation out for a couple of months. And one of the weekends we decided to go and try and play a couple of different games and see what games were available. And this happened to be there. So we said we'd give it a go. And it's very different compared to other games that we'd actually played at that time, because you play as a vampire by the name of Kain. And this game actually spawned a whole different series of games later on in the franchise, especially one being Soul Reavers, one of the most recognised games ever. But it all started with this here type of game. I will be doing another video on that at some point, so keep an eye out for that. But essentially this here game, you're playing as he was murdered at the start of the game, as you could see early on, and you then become a vampire with unique abilities and powers. So then you're tasked then with finding your murderers and trying to bring justice to you as well. And there's a lot of, say, action and RPG kind of based elements where you're upgrading your characters, unlocking different items, different spells, and as you progress through the game you have different magical abilities where you can actually disappear and reappear in different types of areas around the maps within the game. But not only that, you can transform into other creatures, into the likes of a werewolf or even bats and so forth, so that you can get into and access areas that you can't get into with your normal character, which is actually pretty cool. But again, it's definitely got a really dark and gothic type of style to it. And there's a lot of dungeon crawling in it, because you do spend a lot of your time inside of caves and dungeons for the most part in playing this game. There's definitely a lot of that element here in it, for sure. But it is actually a really, really good game. And I remember actually, like, when we first experienced it, we actually did play it for quite a bit. And we were really enjoying it, because it has a really, really good story, really good voice acting and so forth in it as well. And it's definitely correct to that type of era as well, especially like with mythic like lore and stuff like that, fictional characters. So it was actually very good. The only downside is we didn't actually have a memory card, so whenever we got so far we actually couldn't save the game. That was the only main issue that we actually had, so every time we played it we'd have to play through it again. But on the plus side is we'd take turns of playing it, so anytime we were playing a new playthrough, one of the other guys would actually have a go of it as well, because they wanted to play it too, which is quite good. But then after we gave it back, we didn't play it then for a couple of months, and I remember then around Christmas time, it was literally a couple of days, about a week after Christmas on 1997, and myself and my brothers and one or two of our mates actually went up to Dublin, and we had saved up money that we gotten over the holidays, and even a bit of pocket money, because even though we'd gotten a good few games for the PlayStation, we still wanted to get a few more. And so we went to Dublin, to buy a few games. I remember going into a game and a couple of the other game stores, likes of Electronics Boutique and so forth. And I remember actually being in game and I seen this one here and it was like £20 Irish pounds at the time. So I ended up I bought this because I seen it because I recognised it straight away. I was like, oh, I remember playing that and I enjoyed it. So I ended up buying that and then I bought it as a motocross game. It's called International Moto X. Now it's a basic type of game, but I just because it was actually going fairly cheap, so I bought that as well because I just wanted to experience different games. And my brother Stephen then bought one or two games. He bought Resident Evil Director's Cut and then he bought another game as well. But I was more interested in the likes of this here, so then when we did get it, and the fact is that we had a memory card, we actually were able to play it properly and actually get really far on it. Now I'll be honest, when I was playing it, I struggled with it because I got stuck and I didn't really know what to do. But one of my younger brothers, Damien, he played it and he managed to finish it. He was able to really understand the game, but he was more into these type of games anyway. He played more RPG type games, so he was able to figure it out a lot easier than I was. But it was a very enjoyable experience all the same. This game does actually have a unique story in terms of what it offers as well, as you're exploring different types of dungeons and areas. You can go into like caverns, even into like shops and taverns and stuff like that would have been reminiscent of that type of era, especially in the likes of stories and the whole lot. And you can interact with different characters, and then because you're a vampire, obviously you need blood to be able to stay alive, so you would have to eliminate characters and then you clearly take the blood from them as well. So as you can see from some of the animations, so that's how you would actually stay alive. That would be considered your health. But then you were given access to loads of different types of weapons that would actually do devastating damage to enemies over time as well. So there was a lot of unique abilities in this game. And again, the story was good, but it was very long. It was actually a very long game. It would take you quite a while to actually finish it. So it was definitely unique for its time. Definitely had a lot of characteristics that were really, really good, and a really good atmosphere to it as well. It was really dark, really eerie. Even the graphics and the music, the whole vibe about the game was very, very dark and just gothic, and it did have a really eerie vibe to it. So it was actually quite a good game for its time. You also had to make sure that when you were actually walking around and engaging with different areas and different enemies, there was a lot of environmental hazards as well, because as you know, being a vampire, you had to avoid water because water would actually kill you. You could try and go to different areas through the water, but it would take a lot of damage from you, so you would have to be best to avoid it. But then when you unlock different abilities and you were able to turn into different characters and animals and stuff, it allowed you to bypass a lot of those areas, so you could take shortcuts and even jump over certain areas or fly over certain areas, so you could get to those places that were hard to reach earlier on in the game. So that was what was kind of unique about it as well. So there was definitely a lot here especially for fans of RPG games or even just horror games in general.
The sanctuary spell enables me to travel to my crypt, where the soil of my grave provides me respite. I often resort to this when I am weak and need nourishment.
This was where the bloody deed of my murder took place.
Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed, Janos Audron, the heart of darkness restores vampiric unlife. Life is precious, Janos discovered, as it was torn, throbbing and bleeding from his own body.
This ancient vial bears with it a dark gift indeed, for with it my life force is increased. These ancient symbols of power contain raw magical energy that increases my own capacity to summon energy for the spawning of spells. Within the walls of these chambers I could find respite, and if I so chose, resume my journey when my weariness abated.
When rainfall comes, vampires are wise to find shelter from its acidic touch. These curious devices hurl bolts of whirling energy and eviscerate my human enemies by stripping ragged flesh from blood-stained bone. The world had changed to my eyes. I had not expected such cruelty from the vault, for in the embrace of the sun I could find no comfort, only malice. This would change in time for the worse, along with other things.
So that's it for this video of Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. It's actually quite a unique game. It actually has really good story based elements and action and RPG elements. So what are your thoughts of it? Have you played it? And if so, did you enjoy it? How did you find it? So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I release future videos, as I will be revisiting games like this here and even trying to play new games as well and creating videos on them and so forth in the future. And as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.